one story. I've just done almost the bulk of all this. I hadn't hit record. It's prattling on, about deep and many and plenty things. I had never hit the bloody button. It's alright. I'll turn a dial now and I'll do it correctly. Promise. So here we go again, diving into some very strange territory, very strange waters indeed. I'm giving off a bit of a vibe, as the youth say. I know this is not historically accurate. I thought for sure I was prepared with a regular, proper 1800s nightgown. But I wasn't, you know. What a disappointment. So I sort of invented one, and it's not really a real thing. Don't judge me or comment about it, please. I'm not going for that historical accuracy. Just telling you a story that winds into another story that is the story of all things and all time and everyone and everywhere. And my hair's not right either. Not a bit. I'm trying to give you a Thomasina Cavalli experience. This would be more like Thomasina gone wild, which, as it were, is what she wanted to do and wanted to be. She can never be that free. So I went into all of this, and I was much more clever and prepared, and I'll be going in and out of accent, so don't worry about it. If I had more time, I could do it much more impressively. I have been hired before as a dialect coach, so don't get too snoofy in your underpants and booties about it. I had some time, you know, but I'll just be slipping in and out casually. So I told all about how this is an original poem, day 71, what fun, tea and crumpets, yes, rotating round the sun, or the sun rotating round us, or whichever the philosophers thought it was in the 1800s, I don't know. I think they thought it was being cranked by a hand crank, perhaps. Anyway, I went into, I don't even know how this came to my mind to choose this. I guess I was just being dreamy and reminiscent about the past, I suppose. The past isn't through with us, and we may be through with the past and all that. But somehow it came into me to deep dive into this topic, and it was very interesting. At acting school in Hollywood, we were assigned these final scenes, and it was like we did a film scene, which was also a very deep experience. Mine was Magnolia. I'll do a whole homage piece to that as well, and we'll get into it, and we'll get into the nitty gritty. Yeah, it's just a pity. It's a pity all the clever things I said weren't captured. I have to try to think of them on the spot again. But my partner and I were given this scene, and he was not feeling it. And I'll go into it. I'll go into it less detail than I did before. But basically, we had done a shorter scene from the play Arcadia as Thomasina Cavalli and Septimus Hodge. We had done it for our voice production and speech class, with an emphasis on where our tongues were, the intense tongue training that we were doing that I've since lost and deeply regret not continuing, for it was so fun to know how to use one's tongue. Didn't use it properly, though, I'll tell you that much. I didn't take it to the fullest of its tongue potential. But we had done that scene, or done those characters, more so for the use of our accents and mouths and plosives, you know, for our teacher to judge our work on our plosives and how much we could spit on each other pre-COVID, you know. And so I am not trying to blame him. It takes two to waltz, it takes two to tango. That's the whole time in the whole play. All Thomasina wants to do is waltz. Really, she wants to make out, but she says she wants to waltz, but she actually wants to grind on him. But she wants to waltz, and he keeps pushing her off. It's a pupil-teacher romance, you know, which I can't resist, those inappropriate age romances. Back when, you know, taboos were a little bit more taboo-y. And the boundary pushing was quite scandalous and juicy. But yeah, it's pupil-student tension built up over years, you know, on a large estate and travelling the moors, studying philosophy. How could you help but not be a little worked up, you know? But so he keeps putting her off because he says, well, that's not a waltz. That isn't a waltz. So the irony being that I gave you a record comprised totally of waltzes. It's all waltzes. Thomasina could just be taking up the whole floor the entire night, but she tragically burns in a fire, which goes along with the whole concept of not knowing and desire, and we don't know and we can't learn until the time has passed, or we read it in a book 100 years later, or whatever it may be that brings us around to the knowing. But so I kind of went along with him more so. I didn't mind doing the characters again, but he was quite upset. Like, you know, Septimus comes off at first as just this sort of fuddy-duddy, stuffy professor guy, and he didn't feel challenged by it, and he thought, like, I can do more than that, and I've already done this guy with the suspenders and the 16 layers of clothing, whatever. And so I went with it, and good thing that our teacher didn't let us get away with being brats, because I've said this before, and I'll say it again, that I love it when people prove me wrong. I love it, because usually my intuition is so spot on, but I make flub-ups like everybody else, and us asking to do a different scene was definitely very ballsy, very presumptuous, and I had a little bit of a crush, so I was kind of just going with it. I was like, okay, you don't want to do it that badly, but I'm so glad. I'm glad that we took issue with it, because in the way that this whole deep dive into philosophy is about the minor diversions and how everything would go differently. I mean, our experience of it, our learning the waltz, if you will, of the characters, would have been completely different if we wouldn't have questioned it from the beginning or been against it. If we would have just, like, gone with the current of it, then I think that our interpretations and our saturation would have been completely changed. So I'm glad we had a little hissy fit at the beginning, and our teacher was like, no, this took me forever. I picked these scenes. This is what I want to see you do. It's going to be amazing. It's going to change you fundamentally as actors. Don't question me. And he was right. He was so right. I love being proven wrong, because this play took me some places, you know? And one thing I rambled about in my previous doing of all this, some of this cleverness, just moments ago. You should have been there. I was on. I still feel pretty on. It's okay. Day 71. We're on. It's on. It's on like bloody Donkey Kong. But yeah, he got into it, and I got real into it the more we were like, okay, we're doing this. We're going to the 1800s, into some real nitty-gritty questioning of reality and circumstances, and this play is so beautiful. It layers the present with the past, and it's, you know, the emergence of computers and all of these contradictory or sort of weaving together philosophical concepts that were coming out in the 1800s with the philosophy and understanding of reality and life as it came from science and computers, and the juxtaposition of those and these scenes kind of seamlessly and not really like distinctly changing. Like they wouldn't kind of sell it to you like a TV show does, like, and next up. It was kind of just happening and overlapping in a way where you're like, wait, where are we again? Are we in the past? Are we in the future? What's happening? Because that's the whole, it's supposed to get your brain into that whole mentality. And I did such excavation of that character, and I was and Thomasina is this young lady who's figuring out mathematical primes and coming up with diagrams that no man could finish in their time, and just, solving the universe, and she solved this incredibly complex thing, and then she died in a fire. But basically the whole time she's just, very hot in her trousers for Septimus, her teacher, and he's very impressed by her extremely advanced understanding of the entire universe and the mathematical complications that pull us towards our destinies. Determinism versus this versus that, and the jam, and how the jam mixes, and if you know the jam, then you know about the jam, but if not, I'll explain it further in the poetry. But yeah, I got so deeply into it, and so she's this complex young lady who's much advanced in her time and in her understanding and demanding to know the passions that control the human soul. And I was like finding math tutors on like phone numbers in coffee shops and calling like super advanced calculus tutors and asking them to explain these heady, lofty concepts to me as an actor. I mean, I paid a few of them. I didn't just ask for it for free. One of them gave it up for free though, for like 2 hours. He was like, "Oh, you're an actor and you just want to know about this math?" Like, sure, whatever. That sounds interesting. I'll try to explain it to you. And I was calling like philosophy students from various colleges in LA and asking them, "Would you mind if I picked your brain about Arcadia and all the crazy lofty concepts in it?" And they were like, "Sure, that's what I live for in my brain. Let's do this." And that's why I couldn't go to normal people college, because I'm just interested in everything. I couldn't possibly pick one lane to stay in for 4 years. It sounds torturous. But I do love perusing the brains of people more trained, more learned, more schooled than I. I do enjoy it. It's fun. I like being the one who has lots of questions and doesn't get it and needs you to explain it again. It's new. It's interesting. And I was also thinking, as I was digging around for this old-looking paper in my computer room, I was thinking about how I miss not knowing who was in the know and what people knew and didn't know. So if that makes any kind of sense, cool. If not, basically I'm just saying, like, I miss, before the saturation of the internet and everything at your fingertips-ness. That's Thomasina poetry. Everything at your fingertips-ness. Don't want a nip-slip in my 1800s nightgown. Don't have a frown, just teach me to waltz. I don't know. Open the vaults of your intellectual sexual dialogue. I should totally write a whole rap as Thomasina Coverley. It'd be lovely. Okay. So yeah, I just miss, like, I didn't know how cool Arcadia was. There wasn't Google everything. I wasn't, like, no one was tapped into the mainframe at all times. Like, all information is infinite and you can just have it, and Siri can tell you about it, or Alexa, or whichever robot of your choice. Yeah, it was just, everything was new, and I didn't know who knew or didn't know, and it was cool to dive into that and be like, do you know about this determinism? Can you please tell me? And everything. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I just saw a video about that. I know about that. That's the attitude now, is I just feel like everyone knows everything, and I miss not knowing, and we all kind of didn't know, and like, do you have a book about that? Can I read it? I miss that. But so yeah, there was some real philosophical hunting going on, and we just crushed it with this scene. The other scene I was doing was also very heady and deep, and I ended up contacting the writer a whole bunch, which was thrilling. She was gonna maybe come see the performance, and then she couldn't, but she was writing back and forth to me a whole lot, which was so, just lifted me as an actor, and like gave me a good luck email the night of the performance. And that scene, I'm gonna have to do like an homage to that one too and look it up, because I can't remember. Too many things have entered my brain since then. But it was a beautiful scene, like orchestra, members of an orchestra, and maybe they're alive and maybe they're dead, and their voices are layered in this cacophony of wonder, and each word, like, you could not miss one word of that scene, because each word is like a musical note to the next word, and they fill in each other's gaps and they overlap, and it was crazy. And we would listen to classical music on the floor, laying on the floor, holding hands, feeling each note and word as actors do. And that one was also very emotional, and there was like choreography where we were all moving at the same time. And so both of these scenes led me down some pretty, I was up till probably 5:30 in the morning every single night, honestly, truly, reading crazy books, crazy old musty books from old LA libraries where people were living, and you had to like, oh, sorry, I'm in your living room for the philosophy section. There was a lot of that. But yeah, and Momo was in the Arcadia scene as well, and I gotta say, it was one of those characters that, like, if it had been on television, it could have been forgettable, and that's just being honest. And she made it so memorable and delectable and like juicy, and I could just feel her on stage the whole time. And she was in the future, she was in the present times, and I was in the 1800s, and we're going in between these two realities, existing but not knowing that the other one is still existing at that time. And we were roommates and very deep, and had the paper trail wall covered in thought and philosophy, and everything was deep. So we really dove into that one pretty hard, and yeah, she just delivered. She juiced that orange of knowledge and thought, and really gave it such a beautiful voice. And it was one that just like the audience responded to so much. And I love that about theater too, that I had my like little crush, and you get to like build up to this kiss, and everybody's into it, and they're feeling it, and they cheer for it, and they're like about it, like Thomasina Septimus, what? And like, it's a different level of existence. It's not the same set of morality or standards of like, oh, did he have a girlfriend? We were Thomasina and Septimus. And everyone wanted us to kiss badly, and we did, and it was amazing. It's that fireworks of transforming yourself into another person. But yeah, oh, I forgot this part. I had this at the beginning. I was recreating, this is a bit of a scandalous dress line, though, for Thomasina. She likes that. But she comes in with the candle, the perfect Septimus. But yeah, and he got so into it too, and he was not necessarily the kind of guy that you would think would get like really into that material, not in a mean way. He was just like a little bit more like, hey, from Jersey, and like had that thing going on. But he got so into it, and we both did, and we both were like, this philosophy is blowing our minds. And I just enjoyed it so much, and I could talk about the play all night. I pulled this down because she very much so, do that ring light thing. It's hard, like they're helpful, but then it's hard. But yeah, she is Thomasina, That's Thomasina, really. That's her. So I liked that. I had to sort of include that, kind of. I just like her, like, wistfully wishing off into the distance for Septimus. And it just felt really good to say Septimus in that flirty way every time. I don't know why. It just rolls off the tip of the tongue in such a way that's very empowering. Septimus. What is the tangible universe, Septimus? Is this a waltz? Is it a waltz yet? Never gave her that damn waltz. Well, a little one, a mini one. Didn't give her the waltz she was after, though, is what I'm trying to say. Little bit of show and tell while we're over here. A little bit, just a tiny bit. Because this record's about to run out, which is also symbolic. The Newtonian universe. The needle plummeting inevitably towards the last ring of the record. Will they ever know? Is there music beyond the last ring? But I love this little cup. It's got light in it, so it's very symbolic. Just sipping upon light. I like the ting of it and the cling of it. All things here are dusty. I'm sorry, it can't be helped. Can't be helped, we live in the country. Just sneaks in under the floorboards, Right on cue, right on cue. For my sipping light with you. Oh, this is a good one too. I just got this for Christmas. Because Thomasina's really into love. She's really into that love's arrow puncturing her bosom. In the past, you know, they always say bosom. But I'll show and tell this. It's just so lovely. My father gave it to me. The clasps of it, the claws are so delicate. They just have such character. Love it. Love every second of it. And it's very, very old. It's velvety. And look at this thing, just the feeling of it when it comes out. It's a fountain pen. Very, very old. This is mother of pearl. Love to give it a whirl from time to time. My ink dried up, which I was very sad about. I don't know how that happened, but it just all evaporated into this chunk. Made me very sad. I wanted to write some quill letters. Dear Septimus, I've figured out everything. Do you love me now? Yes. Oh, and I was very excited as well that I found my Dooble Dobbles. These things that you waxy and then you smack on the thingy and then you have yourself a seal. It's all very real and tangible and old school. So, yes, we'll get to the poem. I'm going to flip into some other waltzes just to give a little bit of ambiance. Feels sort of haunting and dissonant as well, which sort of fits. I like it. Has that little bit of spookiness, even though it's upbeat, which works for this. It works quite well. Oh, but yeah, I was definitely getting a headache already tonight, diving into these extremely huge concepts, ideations of various versions of if we're real or if we're not, or if what we see is what we see, or it's a dog's dream, or something we feel in our feet that we've created from a birth memory. I mean, it gets so deep. And I loved having those students of these things explain it to me, because it was like, I told them, explain this in a way that I would understand as an actor, in so much as, I can only grasp it as like, I want to understand and it's there and I can kind of take a bite of it, but not necessarily, I don't know what the analogy is there, but it's like, I want it to absorb into my bloodstream fully, but it kind of just washes over the surface of my skin, and I'm like, that was fascinating. I want more, and it doesn't quite get in all the way. That's how math and science and concrete ideas are for me. They don't saturate all the way, but that's okay. I understand it in so much as I can absorb it. Did I show you this already, or did that happen the previous time? No, I don't even know. Isn't she pretty? Also quite dusty. Just a side effect of being in the country. I thought she was quite pretty. Oh yeah, so deep. So I don't even really know, how this came to me this evening. Wanted to do an original piece, just bring it to you on day 71 and have some fun with on the spur of the moment on the momenting. And it was cool. It was cool rehashing just the first few little onion layers that I got into back in the day when I really put on my scuba gear and went for this research. Just did a little bit of it tonight, and it was already making my head hurt, but kind of in a good way, where I was like, I forgot how to use this part of my brain. Maybe I should train it again, do some gymnastics with it. I will just thin this down ever so slightly. My creaky chair also sort of works. It's like, is the chair creaking? Or am I just perceiving that it's creaking? Or is it speaking and I'm the chair? Is the chair me talking now? Is it a cow, really? And I'm sitting on it and it's mooing? Who knows? The fabric of reality is ungluing as we speak, you know. I don't think... Oh, I didn't show that trippy thing either. I will show that trippy thing. I don't think that happened. It happened the last time, so I don't think it happened this time. This just goes with the, like, what's real? Do you know? Do you feel it or do you know it? This thing is purchased separately from this thing, and this thing is this thing, and they are so identical that your mind may think, am I creating a duplicate? What? Wow. I just think that's sort of crazy, don't you? Yes, I mean, they're eerily similar. Maybe it's not that cool, but I think it is. I truly do. There's all sorts of whimsical things behind me here. I wish I had time to show you all of them. Seems sort of deep in what is life. It's a very, very, very heavy, what's the material? Oh my gosh, it's a stone. Very heavy stone apple. Indeed. Very heavy stone apple indeed. Oh, and I forgot the warm-ups. Such as, my secretary has not been revolutionary for the last half-century. Mentioned when I did this previously that my co-workers, when I was a waitress, a waitron, a waiter, would get very bored indeed, and I would do my British warm-ups to entertain everyone, such as, 'twas really very silly for Harry to marry Sally. They were just so good, and the car struck the bar with a fearful jar. It's good stuff. It's good jam. Once you mix it in, can't go back. Septimus and Thomasina reference. But yes, please read Arcadia. It is... opens British gates into British gardens of your mind that you didn't know were there. It doesn't even have to be British. It could be anywhere in the world. It opens up a whole world of knowledge for you. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'll give you the poem. Day 71. Thumbs up to that. And actually, this whole concept came to me because I took a nap. That's what it was. Are we all in the middle of God's nap? I don't know. But I took a nap and I thought of the phrase upon waking, past participle, past participle, past participle, past participle. And I thought, that's what my poem's going to be. And then it just sort of took me down. That's where it came from. I forgot. That was ages ago. As much as 6 hours. So yeah, that's how I stumbled into that topic. Thought stream. Just floated down it. Found the fishies. Followed them. So here we go. I'll give it to you. And there are a few quotes in here. I quote my sources, always. Unless I forget that you told me something. And then if you remember, just put it in the comments. Hey, that was me. And I'll give you credit. Usually try to do all original. But I love word weaving with other people's words. Like I said, someone doesn't capture it and put it in a bottle. Who's gonna? Who's gonna if I don't? So, just sit right proper like a lady. We'll cross the legs in that old 1800s lady fashion. And I will give you this poem. Called, of course, Past Participle. It's that age-old quest, shunned, about the tree and who's around to see it fall. It's like a reverse crystal ball where you're staring into broken glass trying to ask it impossible questions. It's dancing a waltz to lessen the pain of a grief that hasn't gripped you yet. It's hedging your bets on the horse everyone thinks will lose just to fight for something wild and chaotic you can prove. It's Thomasina in her nightgown with a candle, being, as they say, a whole mood. Being, as they say, a whole mood. It's brooding over someone who doesn't notice you. Trusting a feeling that's floating you somewhere new, arranging a million paper slivers, searching for proof, that inexplicable poof of a moment only you witnessed. How can you conclude it happened if no one backs you up? Will it matter if your passionately retelling convinces anyone? Was a party fun just because the guests nodded their heads and said it was? Does that buzz that only you hear at night actually exist? Should you risk describing the tone or pitch to anyone else? Can we really argue determinism all on our own to anyone but ourselves? Pull down from that shelf your wealth of philosophy and dive with me into our madness of what could or would or should or will be. Get good and curious about the actions of those wild bodies in heat. Valentine insisted you could feed the algorithm into itself 1,000 times and each dot would land into an unexpected spot. With all our variable assessments and complex calculations, the computer would choose an unforeseen place. The unpredictable pace of the human race and all its chaotic longing versus that deep mathematical certainty of the hour chime gonging, or the theological desperation to be convinced of one's own belonging to some omnipotent certainty, the urgency of sex and science and the endless lines drawn between, the overlapped scenes of modern and long-gone lust. We philosophize and hypothesize, but what is that mystery force that truly grips us? Under the surface of the waves, it slowly slips us. Are we just making a fuss? Is not knowing enough? It's wanting to know that makes us matter, Hannah said. We've only a smattering of understanding even now with all these mega computers. We still can't concretely prove free will. Is that flower box real on her windowsill? Does it fit the bill of direct idealism? Can you draw me a diagram of how it looks and feels and prove beyond a flicker of a shadow that the flowers are there? Do you dare blanket it as naive realism and question your own vision as a potential perceived miniature video game whereupon you only see the flowers because you were the inner artist of their existence? Could we be on the fence with some indirect realism, where we are the cinematographer, choreographer, and set designer of scraps of understanding we've woven into perception? Is this passing reflection a blip of representationalism, where we are just plugs for various wires of higher understanding fed to us, then adjusted to meet our interpretations? Can you express through the creation of all new colors beyond the spectrum of color set forth for the flowers by accepting conceptualism? Perhaps your mind only gathered ideas of flowers from fairy stories and some mental snapshot of your great aunt's morning glories to inform a universal but disorderly concept of such an object. Are the flowers just a composite of foundationalism, whereby you collect assumptions based on stable collections of theories? Like the solid trust that rainbows will be created by light shining through a reflective prism. Are we dizzy yet? Can anything be seen as a given? I cannot even begin to dive into Leibniz's theory of monads, or the central monad risen as God. I start to view us all as cogs when I read about bifunctors and multifunctors, covariance and contravariance of vectors, preserving identity morphisms and composition of morphisms, maps and graphs and divisions and unknowns. Basic definition? Mind blown. Are we owned by deterministic unseen forces, or can we dream and create with hedonistic abandon and trust? If the pipe rusts, Would it have rusted no matter what? Did Newton feel the rut of the rapidly approaching rubber band stretched inevitability? He wanted predictability like the gears of a clock. Did he simply hide the shock of the barmy, outrageous presence of chaos? Would he toss out the idea of the jam mixing into the porridge and the fact that it cannot be returned to its original state? Did he think that math was in bed with fate? Stoppard's thoughts and reflections on the matter were a very, very full plate. He had a great hunger for what he described as the knowledge whereby man may approach God. We applaud confidence in unwavering answers, knowing all the while that the dancers on stage are dancing differently for all those watching the dance unfold. When Thomasina tells Septimus everything he's struggled to articulate with such youth and unwavering proof and grace, his relief and emotions fill the room, and he says, not with defeat, but with deep acceptance, so, we are all doomed. She answers yes, quite definitively. When internally this logic, math, symmetry, and philosophy matter less to her young heart than the questions unanswered about carnal embrace. And who knows when we'll all have to face the fire as she does. You add an ED on the end to express what already was. At least she danced. They chanced it. They planned for it and the hand of whatever name you wish to give the largest power of outcome came along and swung a whole other equation into the sum of attempted understanding. We're always demanding a right answer on this looming human quiz. Who truly knows if the answer key is in some locked mighty desk as the end-all be-all of being? Does perceiving equal seeing, or is the inverse true of such a thought? Do we accept our lot, or stir the jam, and therefore stir the pot? The heat goes into the mix, Valentine deduces, but is there truth in knowing for certain that the heat is unquestionably hot? Do we control the plot, or is it already written? We sure do get smitten with the idea that the answers and outcomes can all be theorized and categorized and learned and taught. What if this entire presentation of what is known only exists in a small net in which you are caught, and others out there are in a totally separate net with a varied and completely contradictory set of givens and presumed decisions that they too think they are making? Is your corporal, metaphysical, and spiritual body shaking yet? Are the theologians, the teachers, the preachers, and philosophers all so sure as they seem, or are they faking it? Are we one giant snow globe with an anthropomorphic child god shaking it? We use idioms and theorems and well-worded summaries to guess the weight of all that's at stake when posed the question, just because your eyes are open, does that mean you're awake? Da, 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 ba, ba. Good time for that good old classic waltz to come on. So I included, so there's a few quotes in there. I think I quoted them as they were occurring, from Tom Stoppard and characters in the play. But a quote of Valentine's that has to be everybody's favorite in the play. I mean, and my friend from acting school delivered it so well, so beautifully. Everyone was crying. But I included this quote of Valentine's at the end. And he says, "The universe, the elementary particles, the ordinary size stuff which is our lives, the things people write poetry about, clouds, daffodils, waterfalls, and what happens in a cup of coffee when the cream goes in. These things are full of mystery, as mysterious to us as the heavens were to the Greeks. We're better at predicting events at the edge of the galaxy or inside the nucleus of an atom than whether it'll rain on Auntie's garden party 3 Sundays from now. We can't even predict the net drip from a dripping tap when it gets irregular. Each drip sets up the conditions for the next. The smallest variation blows prediction apart. And the weather is unpredictable the same way. It will always be unpredictable. The future is disorder. A door like this has cracked open 5 or 6 times since we got up on our hind legs. It's the best possible time to be alive, when almost everything you thought you knew is wrong. Isn't that finger licking good? Man, wash your hands first, but then lick those words off your fingers. Read this whole play. It's so good. A few other sources of, I changed the words, but sort of concepts or leading me down other research pathways of like explaining it in a much more intellectual way, was an assessment of the play written by John Fleming from Texas State University. So, yeah. And there's a couple other quotes I added in there. One, I said that Hannah said the quote about it's wanting to know. What does she say? It's wanting to know that makes us... Shit, now I lost it. It's wanting to know that makes us matter. That's what I thought. It's wanting to know that makes us matter. I love that. So well stated. It's freaking brilliant. That summarizes so much that I don't even know. That's all you have to say, really. Another quote was, it is a defect of God's humor that he directs our hearts everywhere but to those who have a right to them. Ah! Delectable. Just, whew, so good. Such good use of language. And Septimus's line that just got everybody every time. I think I cried probably every time he said it. My co-star in the scene. But the tension is really mounting between them, and Thomasina's revealed that she knows this crazy diagram that men have been trying to figure out for years, and Septimus himself has been trying to figure it out, and he's just dumbfounded, gobsmacked that this young girl has figured it out. And he says, when we have found all the mysteries and lost all the meaning, we will be alone on an empty shore. And Thomasina says, then we will dance. Is this a waltz? She's just like, come on, get to the romance part. But yeah, such a juicy play, my goodness. There was a little tiny book here I wanted to share with you. I found it right before I started this video. Ooh! It's so old, in fact, that pieces of paper like this are just rotting out of it, which is okay. These things happen. But it's, I honestly can't say that I'm intelligent enough to know when the timeline is here, but it's by Drummond. It's called Greatest Thing in the World. And I found it right before I did this very heady, what is everything video. And I opened it up and thought this first page just kind of nailed it. The greatest thing in the world. Everyone has asked himself the great question of antiquity, as of the modern world. What is the summum bonum, the supreme good? You have life before you. Once only you can live it. What is the noblest object of desire? The supreme gift to covet. We have been accustomed to be told that the greatest thing in the religious world is faith. That great world has been the keynote for centuries. Well, we're wrong. If you've been told that, you may have missed the mark. So he goes in and he goes on. But he basically goes on to say that it's love. Spoiler alert. It's love. It's L-O-V-E. It's the greatest thing in the world. I just thought that was really quite delightful. And this I thought was quite a good show and tell as well. It's old calligraphy brush with this remarkable inkwell. And you're just supposed to pour your ink in there. Isn't it so romantic? I think that's so romantic. Just everything about it. The clink, the feel, the touch of cotton, the fabric of our lives. This thing seems quite ethereal and noteworthy too. It's very, very old Japanese cloisonne, and it gives these different layers of these very intricate balls. How they begin like this, and then a layer becomes added, this wire sort of layer, and then this lacquer is the final product. This one has lovey-dovey hearts all over it. I don't know, it just sort of seems representational of the layers of creation, the spinning ball of unknowns. Ooh, the groans of the philosophers trying to put words and verbiage and meaning to it all. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to know that I don't know much, to just accept and scratch the surface with my tiny little human fingernail a little of how much there is to be known and shown and grown and overblown about this wild universe we happen to find ourselves in. So here's to another day in the sun tomorrow. 71 sure was fun. I had a really good time with that, even though I got super upset and almost cried that I had to do it again. Because my secretary has not been revolutionary for the last half century, and that was her fault, really, my secretary. She should have pushed the button for me, but that's okay. I'll forgive her. You can't see her very well, but there's Diana the Huntress over here as well, and she's very good, and I feel very tempted to just ring this bell as well, because it's kind of a mystical thing, metaphysical thing. They say when you ring a bell, you know, portals open and such. So you're welcome. You're welcome out there. Just opened a portal for you. It's fine. We'll get through it. I think there's something very meaningful in here as well. We'll end on that, whether it is or isn't. Oh, it very much is. Let's get deep here. These are real butterfly parts and dragonfly parts that I, or people I love deeply, have found in mystical, woodland, green, wondrous places. Just look at that reflection of the butterflies on the jade within the box. Like, that's a whole philosophical movement right there. Just the dragonfly and his shimmery, iridescent, see-through wings. Are they even there? They're so see-through and translucent. Could they possibly be real? Oh dear. Leave you on that cute thing. Oh dear. It's been very nice spending another day of poetry with you. Do it again for 72. Sweet dreams of things you don't understand and things you hope to. Find answers and questions alike in your dreaming tonight.